Hi, Kelsey.
Hello.
Thank you so much for agreeing to sit down with me and tell me your success story. I feel like I'm in the presence of royalty because you are not only an OG GlossGenius user, but also one of the pillars in our community, having been an educator as well as just a dedicated and loyal community member.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really kind of you to say, really. I'm like, oh, right.
Oh, well, I love that we're sitting down today to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is resilience. So let's start in the beginning. I want to go back to the early days. Tell me who Kelsey Morris was before she became a beauty professional and hair artist.
Oh gosh. I was just like literally as you were starting to say that, like thinking back, I'm like, man, that feels like a really long time ago. I'm getting really old. So, before let's just it's so interesting because my story begins actually probably when I was around 12 years old. My mom came home and I had all my friends lined up in the kitchen and I was cutting their hair. And I was determined I was going to give them layers, and I did actually. I actually didn't even get any angry phone calls, but my mom's like, you can't do this, like you can't cut people's hair in our kitchen. I'm like, but I love it. So it's funny because it's kind of always been a thing. I think it's in me. And actually one of my earliest memories is of when I was 5 years old. My mom was pregnant with twins, and to keep me busy, we used to play hair salon. And so she would lay in her bed because she was on bed rest, and she'd be like, okay, I'm going to the prom. And I would style her hair for the prom. Or she'd say, I'm going, I'm going out to the mall, and I'd style her hair for the mall. So I think it's all kind of been like in my blood for the longest time. But I'm a very book smart person. I get really good grades in school. And so, I was honors through high school, and told my parents I wanted to do hair. And they're like, yeah, but like most parents, this career can be hard. It can be hard on the body, it can be hard on the mind. You have to be resilient. So they're like, well, what about a college education? If you still want to do hair, then do it after. So I graduated from Ohio State. I have a criminology degree. I thought for a little bit that I wanted to go into the FBI and be like a forensic analyst or something like that. But in my senior year of college, I got pregnant with my son. Very surprised. It was a big deal. And I thought, okay, I'm not really sure the FBI is a really good place for for this baby. So, I always knew I wanted to go to hair school. So I graduated, had my son, I graduated, and then I went to hair school just a few months later and worked 2 jobs, put myself through hair school so that I could support my son and still support my dream. And, the rest has just been history. I mean, as soon as I was able to get on my feet, I built a clientele pretty fast and went solo probably 6 months into my hair career. So, I mean, that's a little bit of what I did before being a hairstylist, but I think it's always kind of been, like I said, it's always been a part of me. It's always been something I want to do. So I still love every day of it.
So you became a mother, and I'm sure that put your personal goals on pause, not stopped and not abandoned, but on pause. What challenges did you face when getting your business rolling as a mother?
Sometimes it makes me emotional to think about it because I think there's so many people who've been put in this position where you're not expecting. I was not expecting to have a child, and you have all these plans and all these life goals and the way that you think it's going to work out. And I sometimes have a little bit of mom guilt because I think for the first year and a half, maybe 2 years of my son's life, I was working so much just to take care of him that I had limited time with him. And I just knew like I was just trying to survive at that moment. So, but I also was able to have the foresight to know that pushing myself at that time was going to set him up and myself up for the future. So I was like, okay, I'm going to push as hard as I can right now. And so that way we're going to be okay in the long run. So I started out at Ulta. because I knew there, you know, when you're coming out of hair school, you don't have a client base. And I thought it was important to, this sounds terrible, but it's true. Anybody in the hair industry knows, make mistakes under somebody else's name. So Ulta as a corporation, you know, they were going to educate me. They're going to teach me their product line, and I was going to have their backing when things went wrong and someone to help fix them. And then I learned pretty fast. I've always been a very eager person to learn. So I was able to learn and build and take my knowledge and move out to a booth rental situation, which then became, you know, it sounds crazier. People are like, oh, that sounds like really difficult. Well, actually it was a little bit easier for me because then I could juggle my schedule better. So I would be like, okay, my son can go to daycare 2 days a week. I will just cram in a million clients in those days. And then I had the other days off with him. And that's kind of how I started the balance.
When the pandemic hit, you were at the height of your career. Can you illustrate what that looks like for us?
Oh, absolutely. So, right, you know, I mean, it's like kind of hard to, it all happened pretty fast for me. You know, I had my daughter in 2014. We had just moved back to Columbus, Ohio. And I went solo, and then I ended up at Sola. At Sola, you know, I became one of the faces of Sola in 2019, which is a huge honor because they choose 10 people from, I mean, I think now it's like 16,000 stylists across the US. And then we get to represent Sola for the year. And I was able to travel nationally with them and speak on Sola's behalf. And I would get to go to conferences and talk to other stylists. And really, you know, my passion is educating people and talking to people. So I was able to tell them how I got where I was and just like mentor other up and coming stylists. So that really kind of put me on the map. And then shortly after, I became a Sunlight's balayage educator. And if anybody knows me, they know that Candy Shaw, who is the owner and founder of Sunlight's balayage, has always been my long-term, like she's like my idol. She's like that person that you see and you're just like, oh, like I love her. And she chose me to be on her education team. So I got to go down to Atlanta and train with her for like 4 days personally. And then she kind of became my mentor. And so, you know, those two things, like I said, those kind of started to like put me on the map. So, you know, as I was doing all the stuff for Sola, as I was educating for Sunlights, I was getting lots of features in magazines and shown on Modern Salon and American Salon and doing lots of Instagram stuff. And I started to notice my dream clientele was coming around. So I kind of had started to shift into more things that I was really enjoyed doing. And around that time, I decided, well, I'm going to open up a salon of my own. So I branched out. I bought an 1860s building. We renovated it completely, opened a 6-chair salon and a clothing boutique attached to it. So I have 2 businesses in one hub. And so that was great. You know, we were recognized in this little time, you know, I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and my salon's in Delaware, Ohio. And I was being recognized all over Columbus for doing that. And then 2 days later, the pandemic shut us down. So it was like, I was like, yes. And I was just so excited. And I was like, just like propelling. And then all of a sudden it was like, just kidding. Like, and then I sat home for 3 months. So,
With 2 kids.
With 2 kids.
2 businesses.
Yes, 2 kids, 2 businesses that are now failing, and then no income, because if you don't work, you don't get any money. And we weren't allowed to have unemployment at that point. And I mean, I am a worker. I love to stay busy. So probably one of the hardest times of my life was like just sitting here, like, now what? And so, yeah, it was definitely a big shift in my life. And it took me a minute, and it still kind of it's taking me some time to like regain the momentum.
What are the 3 most important things you would recommend to anyone creating their own beauty business? Maybe you're a mom, maybe you're not.
You know, that's a hard question. That's a hard thing because you could go many ways with this, but I think to be honest, the 3 most important things to look at before starting your business is number 1. I always tell people to kind of look at their week and run a report knowing exactly how much you made, the delta. So not just like what your sales were, but include the cost of product, include the cost of retail, and then take your sales. You want to set a goal. You need to know how much you can live off of and how much you can afford to pay rent. And then you also have to factor in that you are probably going to lose some clients. So, if you're going solo and you're going to be starting your own business, you got to factor that in. So I always say factor in at least 30% for that. Once you hit that goal, then you probably know you're okay to start this. The other thing is, I am not a numbers person. I am not a details person. I am an artist. So I think this was really hard for me, was being able to organize like all of my things and put it all together, and try to be methodical about that, but not overthink it. So it's more like develop a plan, write it all down, get your accountant in place, get your booking software, your client, your retail, all that, get it in place, put it all somewhere, put it all down. So at least you have a general idea. And then honestly, my third biggest tip, everybody thinks I'm crazy whenever I say this, but I mean, just do it before you're ready. Do it before you're ready, because if you wait, I am the type of person, I'm like, I commit to something and then I figure out how I'm going to make it happen, because the commitment forces me to propel myself into that. And so, if you wait until you're ready, that's never going to happen, because you're never going to feel 100% ready. I have never felt 100% ready for anything that's happened in my life. I just force myself to be ready when the time comes.
It's funny that you're saying this, because I imagine that's how you felt when you found out you were pregnant. You were
Yes.
like, I guess this commitment's made for me. Now, how do I work backwards?
Right. Exactly. Literally. Exactly.
So for our audience at home who may not be able to see or tell, you are actually pregnant right now.
Yes, I am. I am 32 weeks pregnant with our third child. So I got a bump under here. It's like business on top, and then like bump, and then party.
How did that news feel to you?
So this is really a fun story because this is our only planned child. And what's interesting about said child is that the pandemic happened, and I was at the height of my career. And I was just like going 100 miles an hour. I honestly think had it not happened, I wouldn't have slowed down enough to say, hey, what about that baby we've always talked about? Because the timing never felt right, because I felt like, well, if I'm going to be traveling every weekend, if I'm doing this, how am I going to have time for this? And it was like, it forced me to slow down enough and to know, to really dig deep and know okay, I've been wanting this baby for so long. The time has never felt like it's been appropriate, but hey, why not now? So I know it sounds crazy. People probably think it's so weird, but I'm like, yeah, no, this was planned. And I have a child. I have a 12-year-old, a 7-year-old, and then a newborn. And I'm 35 and pregnant, which is, geriatric these days. So it's like, people are like, oh my gosh, was it a surprise? I'm like, no, actually it was the only one that wasn't a surprise. So it's funny.
I love it.
Exactly.
When it comes to software, what should a beauty professional look for in terms of standing out and setting you apart from the rest? And how did GlossGenius help you with that?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question, because especially in today's day and age, software is becoming such an important part of our livelihood. And honestly, I hate to say it, but it can kind of really set you apart, make or break you. So I think one of the most important things, that I was looking for when I first was looking in the software scene was, I knew I needed something that was really intuitive, something that was going to actually showcase my brand more than just, get online, book your appointment, and then come in and see me. I wanted to be able to have this beautiful custom website. And that's one thing that GlossGenius, there originally drew me to that, was I could customize my website. It was beautiful. There's my brand. It wasn't, I love to use the word clunky, because some of the other sites that I had tried were just very clunky. They were just nothing stylish about it. It just was like you're going through the motions and honestly weren't very user friendly. So obviously some of the most important things, you know, you want it to be user friendly. So not only for you, but for your customers, ease of use for your customers. I don't know how many times I've been like trying to get on to book something. I'm like, nope, too hard, done, discouraged. I don't want to do it. Move on. So if your client goes on and they're having a hard time booking, well, that ain't going to work. So, you know, I love that GlossGenius was so user friendly and all my clients kept being like, oh my gosh, this is so easy. Yes, it's great. And the other thing that's so awesome is that they didn't have to remember a username or password. So it literally recognized them by their email and their phone number and their name. So I think that's great too, because again, I don't know how many times it's like 2 a.m, you want to make your hair appointment and it's like enter in your username and password. And you're like, oh my gosh. And so you try like 4 of them and then it locks you out and then you just give up. You're just done. So I love this. It makes it so easy for them to just go on and book their appointments. I also, you know, think it's important when you're looking for software to find something that is able to, you know, help you run your business and give you back your time. So that's a big thing. I actually still encounter stylists who use pen and paper. And actually one girl, you know, just started working at my salon. And I told her, I was like, just try GlossGenius. Just try it for 30 days. If you hate it, I'll understand. She was like, well, I'm still going to keep my pen and paper. I'm like, yeah, you are. And 30 days and she's never looked back. She was like, the best thing I've ever done is put it all online. And here's why, because you don't recognize how much time you're putting into going back and forth with your client for an appointment. You're missing text messages, you're missing phone calls. They're bothering you during your personal hours, but you feel like you have to get back to them. And then you have to have your book with you everywhere. So if you're out, you know, at the grocery store and someone texts you, well, you can't text them back right then because you don't have your stuff with you. So like you have to go home and get it. And by then you've already forgot to text them back. So there's a missed appointment, forget it. So I think the ease of use and the giving you back your time in that sense, but not only that, we also send out confirmations and reminders. So you're really, you know, letting them know, hey, Susie, you have an appointment. And so there's really little, you know, there's really little excuse for no-shows. There's hardly ever last minute cancellations because they know in advance, which gives you, again, your time to save by sending them a message, and then also save your time when you don't have no-shows and you can fill that spot with clients. So I think that those are like really important for me. And when it came to software, that's exactly what I was looking for.
What was your GG story from the beginning?
Okay, so my GG story is really like, it's one of my favorite stories to tell because it's it's honestly just like, I think the way things happen for me in life sometimes. I was working at a different salon suite and I moved over to a solo salon, and the other salon suite had this really intuitive, awesome software. And when I was leaving there, I was like, oh gosh, like now what am I going to do? I couldn't really find anything else. And I had tried several other softwares and just didn't love them. They were not what I was used to. Didn't love it. And my franchisee came up to me and said, hey, you know, we're going to be launching this new thing. It's called GlossGenius. It's not out yet, but when it does come out, I'll let you know. And so me being the type of person, I do not like to wait around. So immediately that night I got on the app store and I just looked up GlossGenius just to see what it was there. And it was there. So I downloaded it and I just like started entering my client information. And this is at like 9 or 10 at night. And then I get a text message from someone on the customer care team. And they're like, hi, Kelsey. We saw you signed up for GG. Like, how's it going? And I was like, wow, this is great customer service. Like, I was loving it, you know? I was like, this is great. And they're like, well, just so you know, we're not officially launched yet. You actually are like one of the first people to ever download it. And it was like funny because I just jumped ahead of everybody. I mean, I was really anxious to use it, but I loved it. And then shortly after, they were kind of, you know, then all the hype was built and they were pushing it out to everybody. But honestly, we went back and forth a lot. They got to ask me a lot of questions in the beginning, like, well, how do you find this? And what do you think about this feature? And what other features that you like? But right out the gate, I knew that this was so advanced. I mean, this was better than what I had been using before and anything else that was on the market. And this was a baby company. So I knew I was set with GG and I was going to stick with them forever. And then of course, you know, becoming part of the GG team, has been also life-changing, because being one of the people who's been with them from the beginning and being able to also give them a stylist perspective, it's been really cool, because, stylists are a totally different breed. We're just, the way we work is totally different. So I can kind of offer a little bit of a different perspective, I think, than just the engineering portion of it, or the behind the scenes portion of it. So it's been really cool.
As the first educator at GlossGenius, tell me about your experience with community and how you've built not only your network professionally, but personally found others who are like-minded and people who you want to build relationships with.
Interestingly enough, a big shift in my career was the moment that I jumped on with the GlossGenius Educator team. And I kind of look at that and I see that as my first real opportunity to make an impact with my community. That was I knew I've always loved to teach, and I always loved to mentor. And I think that was the first time that I was given an opportunity to do so. So I think, honestly, it's been wild, the progress of it. And that's so important to me, is touching the lives of other people in whatever way I possibly can. So being an educator has 100%, it really became more than just a software to me. It became, like you said, an entire community. It's because it's a relationship. It's a vibe. It's all these people coming together to really uplift each other. In our GlossGenius Educator program, we also have a group of like-minded individuals, and we share group discussions all the time. And we're always pushing each other, and we're always helping each other. And you always have someone who you can reach out to. So I think that just that little extra bit of support too has been really awesome. I think it's really important in your career, whether it's educating or doing whatever, to find a group of like-minded individuals to really help you stay focused in your career, but also have someone to bounce ideas with, and to really just have your back, I guess.
How has GlossGenius helped you improve the results of your business?
GlossGenius has definitely helped me manage my business in so many different ways. I think, first I talked about the whole time piece, obviously balancing a lot of things. I want to make sure that when I am home with my family, I have as much time with my family as possible, and I don't want to have to be going back and forth with clients. So I push most people to my bookings website, and then my automated text and reminders really help them. But also really just keeping your business in one place, it's really beneficial. So for example, I have a client that came in yesterday, and her name is Susie. And I, am able to leave all of her notes in her profile. I know exactly what I charged her, because we also have checkout software. So I can see exactly what I charged her for every process. And then, knowing I'm going on maternity leave here in the next 6 to 8 weeks, my peers who are going to be taking over can also go right back into my account, look at her profile, and they can see what my notes were for each session. They can know exactly what I charged her. They have her contact information and everything in there. So this is an interesting time, because it's my first time that I'm on maternity leave, and I'm like, oh, well, this is I'm going to pass it off to my peers, and I have no problem, right? They've got all the information they need. It's going to be so easy. It's going to be great. And also, from other standpoint, reports and analytics, I think, are a really important thing. And like I mentioned earlier, I don't love numbers. Looking at numbers really stresses me out. So having all of that in one place, and really just knowing where my business stands from a numbers perspective is very important, and has really propelled me and helped me know how to set goals and how to achieve those goals. So I think that's been really beneficial as well.
This goes with what you were mentioning earlier, and this is what I meant by resilience. And, a lot of people can say, don't give up, but it's really about don't give up and make a plan. And you have exhibited the ability to take it and run with it over and over and over again. I can only imagine how that has affected you, but I also think you've cracked the code on it's not about choosing between being a mom and a successful business owner. It's about figuring out a way to make both happen?
I think as women, I think it's really important to know that we don't have to choose between being a successful business owner and being a mom, and that it's not really about making a choice anymore. It's about figuring out how to make it happen. So often, I think, a lot of topics of conversation is like, you're a mom, you're a business owner, like, how do you do it all? And it's there's been a little bit of a shift, I think, in recent years where it's like, well, what do you mean? How do I do it all? Of course I do it all. Like that's because that's the choice that I made. That's what I wanted to do. And I don't think I'm any more relevant or any more special than a mother who chooses to stay home, or a woman who's in a business career who doesn't have children. It's just a personal choice that I make for myself. And I think that, like you said, and I love that you said that I cracked the code on maintaining resiliency, because that is really important to me. That is so important to me. I think that it's a mindset. I'm a really big believer in the fact that our mind is so powerful. And if you allow yourself to be defeated because things keep happening and it's piling, like that is a choice. And you got to make the choice every single day to work through these things that are happening and try to find, it sounds cheesy, but try to find the silver lining in it and run with it. And that's been that. I mean, honestly, that's if there's one secret to my success, that's it.
If you could give a TED Talk, what would the topic be?
I honestly think it would be teaching people how to have a better mindset. I think that sounds a little cheesy, but honestly, I think the power of the mind is really important. And as we talked about earlier with resiliency and juggling motherhood and the many careers and the businesses and the things and the letdowns and the perks and all the stuff, I would just love to have an impact on people's mental ability and the stamina. Like, honestly, I think that's really one of the most important things, because you can be given, handed the keys to success. And if one thing happens to you and it levels you out and you can't figure out how to rally from that, well, that was all waste. So I don't know. I think that's probably what I would like to talk to people about, I guess.
I can totally see you doing that one day. I have the vision ahead.
I don't know.
Oh, by the way, all 3 kids are on stage with you.
I know.